President and CEO of Maryland Hall. Welcome to Maryland Hall. You're next to applaud. What we're all applauding for is this wonderful facility and the fact that you're here because you're connecting with each other and you're connecting with this exciting Ignite Annapolis here at Maryland Hall is worth applauding for. I know that you're enjoying an incredible multimedia gallery exhibit, the blues at home, some legends, about 21 legends of Mississippi blues, their portraits on the wall. We had an amazing concert here. It's that kind of dynamics where we flew 3 blues musicians up that really makes a tremendous difference in the caliber of arts, but really the caliber of connection. And we humans, that's what we're all about, right? We want to connect. So I know I'm going to lose you, and in a moment, so just be ready, I want you to introduce yourself in a moment to the person sitting next to you. That's my little heads up warning, because this is about, I knew I was going to lose you right now. All right, go ahead and do it, because this is what makes the evening very special. All right, now I'm going to get you back. This is the hard part. One of the other great, I'm very excited that this is the 3rd year Ignite Annapolis is here in Maryland Hall. It belongs here. This is a fantastic partnership I heard about before my first day on the job. And I was so pleased. Thank you, Jeff Harris and Joyce, who introduced me to Ignite Annapolis. I want you to take a moment and with me, and you can use whatever gender or gender-neutral pronouns you'd like, I want you to read what is up above the proscenium with me. Let's do it together. A measure of a person is the depth of his or her convictions, the breadth of his, her interests, and the height of his, her ideals. And that's why Ignite Annapolis is perfect here, and you're perfect being here. Thanks for coming to Maryland Hall. Come often. We have amazing classes, phenomenal performances. How many people have never been to Maryland Hall before? I knew there were going to be quite a number of you. So welcome and come back often. I think you've just discovered a gem in the Annapolis community. And Rob, Tim, and I were just talking, R.C. Tim and I were just talking about what makes the difference of Maryland Hall. His children started taking classes here. You can come as an adult. I'm enrolled in adult ballet. You do not want to see that. But it's possible for all of us to explore our creativity. Most importantly, it's about your connection with each other, to the arts, and to new ideas and ideals. Enjoy tonight.
Good evening, and welcome to Ignite Annapolis, a rally to legalize marijuana. I couldn't go to the meeting. I had a thing. I stand corrected. Hi, I'm Rob Tim from 103.1 WRNR in Annapolis, and welcome to Ignite. Here this evening, we hope to spark thought and conversation through the presentations of your 16 fellow citizens who will be joining us on stage. Artists and activists, entrepreneurs, and geeks. They're all here this evening to offer you a glimpse of what's on their minds. This evening is possible because of the hard work of Ignite's organizers, Jen Herson, president of Data Canopy, Kathleen Booth, vice president of marketing at Impact, Trish Farrell, Senior VP at McKenzie Commercial Real Estate, and Liz Thibodeau, president of Thibodeau Media Group. And of course, the generous support of our sponsors. More on them in a bit. We really want you to be here with us this evening, and we seek to eliminate distractions. So, we ask that you refrain from taking cell phone pictures or video this evening. We have a professional photographer here from Petruzzo Photography. He's way better than you. He has a nicer camera. Also, we are streaming and recording video of the event. Suited 4 is here taking care of that. And the pictures and video, again, way better than yours, will be available to you for free in perpetuity and throughout the universe. Also, please turn off your ringer. We will mock you. Discreetly, this being Annapolis. Yet with that feeling of superiority that money really can't buy. A word about what you're going to hear this evening and its content. Our presenters come to you this evening unfiltered, and it says a lot about our sponsors that they were willing to get involved with that. The thoughts and opinions they present are their own. They do not
gets organized, fast start pile up, and all of a sudden, where you know it, your home becomes cluttered, everything is a mess. As things get messy, you become forgetful and unmotivated. When you become forgetful, you start to, you're leaving your house. Like, did I close the garage door? I don't even remember what just happened 10 minutes ago, let alone yesterday. Now that you're unmotivated, you start to not complete what you're out to do. And now you become unfulfilled. And being unfulfilled has major impact on your life. It can be anything from creating issues at work to having marital problems. So the choice is yours. You can either choose to wallow, or you can choose to overcome these challenges. As you try to think through this, the simple answer is, or what people typically say is, just try harder. Sure, I think a lot of people can be lazy in life, but the reality is everybody's trying hard. It's just not that simple. Trying harder is not the same as working smarter. Okay? What you really need to do, that's an interesting looking slide, is change your behavior. Okay? So, working smarter means changing your behavior. You have to change. If things aren't working, you have to be able to make that change to be successful. So how can I work smarter? Personal Kanban, right? So personal Kanban is something I'm very passionate about. It's something I use throughout my life. So what is personal Kanban? It's a way to visualize your tasks. There are 4 key elements: visualize, limit work in progress, or WIP, flow, and continuous improvement. When it comes to visualization, I love stickies, right? So the key here is to keep it simple: to do, doing, done. Set up your 3 columns, make it nice and easy. Now you get the work in progress limits. Okay, the key here is when you see the number 2 after doing, that means I can only ever be doing 2 things at once. If I'm doing more than that, I'm overtaxed. I need to simplify things. If my boss says, hey, this is priority, something's coming off. Visualize that for everybody to see what you're doing. Workflow. Prioritize your to-dos. Make sure you understand what needs to happen. And it's a pull system. You pull from the left to the right. You don't let anybody control your doing, right? You let them put it on to-do and pull it over. Okay, some usages. So this was actually introduced by Toyota back in the late 40s. It's used in software development teams, so I actually use that for my teams at work. I also use it at home for my wife and my to-dos, as well as at work for my personal tasks. So I'm a big sticky note fan. Some people that might be more environmental might want to use technology. I do recommend apps like Trello. No, I'm not an employee. I don't get a referral. It's okay. So here's an example of a home board. You can see here there is a to-do items. You can use color coding if you want to do that for you and your spouse. I will say that if you start assigning tasks to your significant other, things may get a little ugly. So here's work life, some examples at work, ways to keep up with either your emails. You got a lot of email you got to get through. Make sure you're responsive. Try to keep everything sizable. Nothing should be more than a day's worth of work. Okay. And the key here is when you do this, you feel that sense of accomplishment. As things are getting done, you get to move that sticky right over to the right and say, I did this. By the end of the day, you've got all sorts of stickies you've accomplished, and now more time and less stress. You go home, you feel like I got a lot accomplished, I can actually show you my list, feeling good, I've got plans for tomorrow, everything is ready to go. Also, if you do this, people notice. As you start to see that you are getting more productive, you're getting things done, you're a go-getter, right? This is not only going to help in your personal life, but it's also going to help at work. Promotions or anything else, people are starting to see that you are productive and you're getting at it and you're getting things done. So, get organized, make things happen, go buy some stickies, make your to-do list. What are you waiting for? And that's it.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Holt. Let's raise your hand if you know you're going to have cancer this year. How about diabetes in the next 5 years? That's the problem with our healthcare system today. We have to predict what's going to happen to us so we can figure out what health insurance to buy. So let's go ahead and play a couple of games on prediction. This is a good one. So if I go to CarMax, it's pretty likely that I'm going to buy a car and not a hot air balloon. Let's continue to play this game. What's predictable and what's not predictable? So on this game, if I was born in Buckingham Palace, odds are I'm probably part of the royal family, and maybe I really am a princess, instead of just a family from Annapolis. These things are predictable. I'm not a princess, but this is completely unpredictable. So what's happening? What we found out is 60% of revenues, the 5 for-profit insurance companies, actually their revenue from our taxes. What are CEOs actually doing if 60% of their revenue is coming direct from us? That's a problem. What they're doing is administering, and then they go back to Congress and they go, you know what? Americans are a lot sicker than we thought. We can't stabilize. We need truckloads of more money. That's called stabilizing. And when they do that, it's actually a bailout for the insurance companies. People then die in the process. But you know what? These guys are getting rich because look at some of these CEO salaries. They're actually making $16 million, $22 million. And remember, we gave them our tax dollars, and these guys are taking it home in their salaries. So we went to Congress and we said, you know what, we want to stop doing this. We want to do improved Medicare for all, but they said we can't do that because of the campaign financing. We actually need to stabilize these insurance companies because it comes back around to us in campaign financing. But you know, these aren't new ideas because in 1912, Teddy Roosevelt wanted it. In 1945, Truman tried to do it, and he was going to add dental to all Americans. And in 1965, it was President Johnson that took it out, and he said only Medicare and Medicaid, and we lost. What we want is single payer. That is public dollars to private delivery. It's what Medicare for All is all about today. We want that. We want to be taken care of. So at this point, America is the only developed country in the world that does not have a universal health care system. We are discriminated based on age, income, illness, and race. It needs to stop, and it could stop. Those bills are sitting in Congress today, Senate side and House side, and these are our legislators that aren't signing it. The Medicare bill did drop here in the state of Maryland, and we could make it happen. A single-payer, improved Medicare for all. It's within our reach. We need to make it happen. People, doctors, everyone is sick and tired of fighting with insurance companies. Join us in this process. It's a curse to be born sick in America today. Let's end that for the next generation. And by the way, get out and vote. Thank you.
Hi, Connor, I woefully apologize for your slides. That was all on me. I resized them wrong, so apologies. His slides didn't look anything like that. They were amazing. I'll fix it in post, okay? I'm Liz Thibodeau, and I am going to talk to you tonight about how to care for an aging parent. Lisa, hit it. I was going to start off with how to take care of an aging parent because I've been taking care of one for the last 10 months of my life, but that quickly changed. While I've been running a business and a home and taking care of my dad, I found some insights. I don't like to talk about dying. I don't like to think about my loved ones dying. In fact, I don't think our culture talks about dying very well. I'd like to change that. Here's our story. I lost my mom 5 years ago, this week actually, to pancreatic cancer. It was the end of my world. She was my troubadour, my true friend. She passed away gracefully in her sleep in my dad's arms. It was really kind of beautiful. It was Valentine's Day. Wow, my dad said, you couldn't script it better than that. Even if you tried, it was a real Hollywood ending, and he was right. Fast forward to last April, my strong, smart, independent, computer-savvy dad, Gramps, as you may know if you follow me on Facebook, had his 5th stroke, and it was a big one, a doozy, he liked to call it, and it rendered him completely immobile. There was no script for this. He was left with his cognitive function, but he lost control of his body and most of his movement. He's completely dependent in one instant. It was heartbreaking, and he felt as though he lost everything, except us, those who loved him. That's my brother, myself, our wonderful families, and it's all up to us now to help him move gracefully through this next passage of his life. You see, statistically, he has very little time left. So we put our lives on hold, and we brought him home, and we took on the burden of his care. And anyone who knows me remembers that this summer was a really long, brutal summer because it was tough. I thought I knew everything. I produced a video about taking care of people in old age. I knew the practical, but what I didn't know was how exhausting emotionally and physically it was to help someone embark on their final journey. There's no textbook for this. I'll never forget that day. He looked at me and he said, am I dying? And I didn't answer him. Why was I afraid to answer him? I lied. I said, no, I don't think so. And then I said, well, we're all dying, right? Every day, every breath, every word matters. I hear that in yoga. Kate Grove, I know you're out there. Why can't I remember that when I need to? And in the middle of this death, you're sending Penelope, Jean, or Poppy, as we like to call her, our 3rd grandchild, a new life, a new spirit, a new voice, a whole new person in our family. I realize I'm no sandwich generation. I am a rap generation. Her birth makes me see his last chapter very differently. I feel like I'm getting a peek behind that curtain. Can we celebrate his ending with the same wonder that we celebrate her arrival? Can we embrace the magic? Their parallels astound me. She is the beginning and he is the end of the same miracle. Suddenly, my hours with him no longer feel obligated. Time with him is not time away from my life. I have a complete paradigm shift from burden to privilege, just like the privilege of holding my babies. We love unconditionally those who need us. He held us up, and now it's our turn. Yes, it's inconvenient sometimes. But on those days, I take a deep breath and I say, yes, I can give more to him today. Actually, I'm grateful for this day at all. There is a light shining in all of us that lights the torch for the next one. That's how it works. The other how-tos, have your parents' paperwork in order, know what they want, know when it's time to hire a professional caregiver, but mostly celebrate with them, love them, spend time with them. I know it's hard, but you see, it's not just their journey, it's your journey too. Let them take your love and take theirs in return, because after all, it's about living a good life to the end. And in the end, the love you take is exactly equal to the love that you make. So make lots of it. As for me, in the end, my only hope is that someone loves me as fiercely as I love him, because that's my Hollywood ending. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bria Barksdale, and I'm an 18-year-old high school senior. For a few moments, I would like to take you back to your own high school experience. What do you remember most? Crowded hallways, the smell of tater tots coming from the cafeteria, homework, counting down the minutes until the bell rings, or going to McDonald's with your friends after a high school football game. Whatever memories those may be, there are some things that haven't changed over the years, and unfortunately, there is still a darker side to the high school experience. Walking into a smoke-filled, vandalized restroom, hearing about the fight that happened in between classes, or sitting alone at the lunch table overhearing mean-spirited gossip. For many of our students, it can be very easy to be caught up in the negativity. So many of our students can become consumed by this negativity, which can make a time in our lives that's supposed to be happy, fun, exciting, become uncomfortable, sad, and threatening. As a student, I enjoy attending high school. I love the school that I go to. I love the people in it. I'm a proud Gopher. But many of my peers don't feel the same way. Before he passed away 6 years ago, my dad used to say, sit back and enjoy the ride. My fellow classmates are too consumed by this negativity to actually enjoy their high school experience. I think high school should be a place where we connect with each other and we connect with the community around us. My visions were instilled in me by my mother. My mother raised me upon the golden rule, to treat others the way I wish to be treated. She also used to say that I should never take things personally, and if someone were to do something bad to me, I should pray for them and move on. So rather than accepting the negativity I observed within my school, I decided to take action. Initially, I didn't know I was embarking on a kindness campaign. It all started last year with Kindness Doors. I organized a contest among classes to decorate their doors for Valentine's Day. I thought it'd be a really great way to bring together the students and the faculty. I challenged the students to really think about what it means to be nice and how they could demonstrate kindness daily. While the contest only involved certain classes, it quickly became a school-wide initiative, and even our principal, school nurse, and resource officer decorated their doors. After the success of the Kindness Doors, I considered other ways that I could promote kindness throughout the school. I then decided to put inspirational messages on Post-it notes and put them in the girls' restroom mirrors and also in the faculty lounges. The responses to this was amazing. My students and my classmates and teachers told me that it boosted their mood. The monitor for our in-school suspension room told me that she noticed students my efforts on kind. As a founding member of the Be More Kind Club, I invited my peers to join me on the kindness campaign because this is something that the whole school should be a part of. We celebrated World Kindness Day on November 13th with note cards to our school community. Students, teachers, faculty members, citing their kindness. On the day that we gave the note cards back, one of my teachers was having a particularly bad day. When she received her note cards, it was as if we'd given her the best Christmas present ever. We also give out little lifesaver packs to our school nurses and police officers because, you know, they're our lifesavers. And we do different activities throughout the school year. While there's still much to be done to change the high school culture, we have seen some changes already. Students are taking a step back before they say something negative. When you walk into the girls' restroom, you're less likely to be teared down with a look or a snide comment, and more likely to be lifted up with someone saying that you're beautiful and smart. Students value lifting others up instead of tearing them down. I know when I'm having a bad day, if I do something for someone else, even if they don't know it's me, my mood instantly improves. So tonight, what are you going to do to take action? Within your home, in your community, at your job, in your school? How can you be more kind? What are you going to do to expand the kindness campaign? What are you going to do tomorrow morning to make a positive impact on someone's day, on someone's life, on someone's minute, on someone's hour? Something I haven't shared with you yet is that I lost my mom to cancer last year in April. I'm telling you this because I want to make a point that no matter what your circumstances, you can always be that change you want to see within your community, which will hopefully spill out into your world. Maya Angelou once said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Are you going to take that chance to change the way somebody feels? Are you going to be that positivity when someone's having a negative Nancy kind of day? Are you going to be that light when they're in their darkest hour? Another quote that I practically live by is that everybody wants to be the sun to lighten up someone's life, but why not be the moon and brighten in the darkest hour? You never know when someone's in that darkest hour. You never know what a hello, a high five, a hug, or you look really good today is going to do for somebody else. So whatever you guys decide to do, whether it's verbally, physically, material-wise, I ask you hashtag Ignite Kindness so we all can see what we've done to make a positive impact on someone's life after tonight. Thank you.
Well done. Well, I hope you're like me, really enjoying these presentations. So my story is a little about inspiration when I needed it most. That's me growing up on the New Jersey shore in the 1960s. My life revolved around playing basketball, driving my very cool 1940 Packard, and of course I went to high school with the idea that I wanted to go to college. My special passion, however, was sailing. I raced 12 months a year, always with the goal of getting better. In May 1970, as a freshman at the New York Maritime College, an important event was coming up, the Mid-Atlantic Championships. The top two teams would qualify for the Nationals. Putting in this perspective, May 4th, that week, we had a horrific event at Kent State when 4 protesters were killed by National Guard troops. For me, I was more interested at the time in basketball. Madison Square Garden at that time had a policy: if you showed up at the back door wearing a military uniform, they'd find you a nosebleed seat. My father counseled me to give that usher a very generous tip. I think I gave him $3. My goal was to watch the Knicks playing in Game 7 of the NBA championship. In 1970, there were great players that all worked as a team. The usher took me into the stadium, and I ended up sitting next to Dustin Hoffman, the Hollywood actor, behind the bench of the New York Knicks. There I was, my beloved team, listening to them, talking about their strategy during the timeouts. Special. And as it turned out, the New York Knicks won the game. Team captain Willis Reed was injured for the past 2 games, but he made a surprise entrance, and he inspired his team. And after the game, somehow Dustin Hoffman and I went running with the team right into the locker room. That's me with the short hair and the uniform, listening to Howard Cosell doing interviews on ABC. I walked around getting autographs, and little did I know I'd have my own television career a little bit later. The autographs, I have them all, including Dustin Hoffman with a very appropriate peace symbol there. The Knicks represented the ultimate in sports. And needless to say, after all that inspiration, I went to the Mid-Atlantic Championship, and I was in the top 3, 8 out of 10 races, qualifying for the Nationals, which at the time was very hard for a freshman. Nice. Now, let's fast forward 33 years. I'm laying in a hospital bed at the University of Maryland Medical Center going through a bone marrow transplant. It was horrible. The lymphoma had wrecked my body, and I was depressed, and I didn't think I was going to survive. Horrible. My wife Janice was with me every step of the way, and it was a question whether the transplant would work. I was slipping away. But one day, a nurse walks into my room, sees me laying there, not moving at all, and she says, "We got to get you sitting up." So I sit up, and she turns on the TV, and there's the game. 7 from the NBA championship. It was the Knicks versus the LA Lakers. And once again, the Knicks won. I forgot about my disease and illness and concentrated on that game. And that moment, when the Knicks won, I resolved that I'm not done with this lymphoma. I'm going to battle it and come back. The depression went away. So I don't know why I came on TV at that time, but it sure made a difference. Several years later, I got to sail with Walt Frazier, the lead guard of the Knicks, and he had an inspiring comment there. Your admirer, Walt Clyde Frazier. He was my hero, and I guess I was his hero in sailing. Back to the locker room. I'm 6'2", and look how big Willis Reed is. And I learned from these players to be polite to everybody. I was impressed with them, and as I got known in sailing, I followed his example. Today, my health is fine. Every day I wake up and say thank you for another day, and I'm back out on the water. I resolved during my illness that if I ever recovered, I would serve other people. My service today includes being chair of the board of Anne Arundel Medical Center, president of the National Sailing Hall of Fame, being on the board of our governing sport, and working with CB Trust to improve our environment. All very important work. Serving others certainly can be challenging, but nothing is more challenging than battling cancer to save your life. I'm amazed that during my low point in my entire life, when I needed a boost, my experience with the New York Knicks and that following regard reminded me that you can be strong when you need it. So today, I get to enjoy time with my wife of 44 years, 3 daughters, their 3 husbands, 4 grandchildren, all so I could be here with you tonight. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Krista Hazencope, and I'm really excited to talk to you tonight about the power of open data in community. But first, what is open data? So open data you can think of like a book on a bookshelf in a library instead of a pile of books on the floor. It's information that is predictable, organized, and findable, just like that book on the bookshelf. So you can use it and reuse it. But full disclosure, I didn't always realize how awesome open data was. And in fact, I didn't actually know what open data was for quite some time. I'm an atmospheric scientist, and my open data journey started in the other side of the world in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. So Ulaanbaatar is the capital city of Mongolia, and if you're not familiar, it's between the Gobi Desert and the Siberia. And I have to tell you, it is really, really cold. The temperature is -40 Fahrenheit or Celsius. They overlap at that point. And you get icicles on your eyelashes when you're walking around. So this is what the downtown area looks like. That's not poor photo quality in the wintertime. That's air filled with smoke, and you can taste that air. And so I was there for 2 years with my husband, Joe. I was doing air pollution research, and he's a software developer. And relatively nearby, south of us, in another highly polluted place, Beijing, China, there was a really cool project going on that we noticed. The US Embassy there had placed a monitor, air quality monitor, on the roof, and it was sharing data via Twitter. It was tweeting out data. It has improved significantly. So we noticed that in Ulaanbaatar, and we thought, why don't we try putting a monitor? So we did. With colleagues, we set one up at a university, and we were really surprised at the impact that this little project had. It caught a lot of media attention. My Mongolian colleague was called into parliament to talk about the role of open data in science in fighting air pollution. So we started wondering once we got back from Mongolia, well, what does data look like across the world for air quality? And as it turns out, there's quite a bit. There's a ton, but it's really hard to get to. It's not truly open. So we wondered what would happen if we started opening it up. So one day in our living room, we stopped wondering about how to open it up and actually just started doing it. So we started an open source project called OpenAQ. And so this project gives air quality out to anyone who wants it, that data, and it also lets people help us build this project in an open way. And so now OpenAQ is a nonprofit, and it's served out more than 160 million air quality data points across the world. But the really cool thing is not the data itself, but what people and communities are doing with it. So people use this information to write scientific articles showing wildfire maps and apps and media articles and other open source projects. And I would say even more than the data uses themselves, it's really the community that's come around the data. So people are first interested in our platform because of the open data, but once you get scientists and policymakers and medical doctors and app developers in the same room, that's really where you start seeing the magic happen. So for instance, when we did a workshop in Sarajevo, Bosnia, and that group there, this very diverse group, decided that they wanted to figure out how much pollution was coming from which places in their city. A pretty policy relevant question. And so they basically came together and created a study, and it's going on right now as we speak in Sarajevo to fix that problem. And so I've found from Sarajevo, from Beijing to Ulaanbaatar, that it's not so much about the power of open data is very powerful, but what really gets a community going and what they can come together around is when they connect with each other, so they can take that data and run. And I think some of the world's most pressing problems don't require rocket science to fix them, but what they do require is sustained local political will and a good solid plan. And the two things that I know that generate those the best are open data and a community that is passionate about change. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Jim Keeney, and welcome to my coming out as an atheist. To be clear, I was born and raised an atheist, but this is the first time I've publicly spoken about it. My presentation is about how I found religion in chaos. Let's begin with some definitions. By chaos, I mean the science of chaos and not the disordered mess that we normally experience, although the two might be related. By an atheist, I mean someone who does not rely on supernatural to explain experiences that are surprising or mysterious. Now that those are out of the way, let's talk about chaos. To understand chaos, we need to talk about systems. We are surrounded by systems. They literally run our lives. Some are natural and some are man-made, but they are everywhere. So what are they? They're simply patterns of flow of energy, flow of information, and flow of things. And they surround us all the time. Are they predictable? Most of the time they are. They appear predictable, reliable, understanding, and reassuring. And this reassurance, this predictability, that is a source of faith. Things that are reliable bring us comfort. We have faith that they will continue without change. This is true even of our cultural systems. But are they? Now we get to the interesting part. Are these systems truly predictable and reliable? Well, no. We've all experienced things that happen unexpectedly, that come out of left field and take us by surprise, the mysterious. Underneath it all is chaos. Those predictable systems are just part of a larger chaotic system, and that chaos actually governs it all. So how can this be? To figure that out, we need to understand chaos. Chaotic systems are nonlinear. What that means is that the size of the input does not correlate to the effect. A small change can have an enormous impact. Pause to consider that. An infinitesimal change can cause a catastrophic effect. For example, a slight narrowing of the lanes of the bridge can cause enormous traffic jams. This is a proven scientific fact. But what about those reliable systems? How can those exist? Turns out there's order in chaos. Predictable patterns can appear within chaotic systems. One form of these persistent patterns are called strange attractors. Even in chaotic systems, patterns emerge. Those patterns persist, and they begin to draw the random energy around them, becoming more and more reinforced and more persistent. These patterns can become quite strong and persistent, predictable. However, they are still embedded in chaotic systems, subject to change, and that change may cause stress on the system. Over time, the stress may cause the pattern to break. But when they break, well, strange attractors are very hard to unseat, so when they fail, they do so catastrophically. Strange attractors store a lot of energy. They've been sucking it up. So when it's released, it can be quite destructive. And these are called black swan events. Remember, what caused the system to fail is virtually unknowable. It can be some truly random, insignificant event. So the catastrophe seems random, capricious, but it isn't. It's just the nature of chaos. Okay, so if everything is chaos, are we all doomed? No. Knowing this doesn't change much, but we can still have faith. We will still experience the unknowable. It's just beautiful in a different way. And remember, small changes can have tremendous impact. Of all the philosophy, Taoism best exemplifies this understanding. So if faith is about striving in the face of the unknown, then I guess knowing chaos is about having faith. And there's quite a lot of beauty in that.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Martin. I'm going to talk about how a stay-at-home mom like me transformed her life with the support of my husband and my 2 daughters. This was the last picture of me in October 2016 before I experienced a life-altering change. My girls were getting older. I had been living an easy life, volunteering, paddleboarding, taking yoga, but something was missing. I wasn't doing enough to give back. Then my life turned upside down. I started researching everything I could about immigrants, and the more I read, the more I became convinced that I had to do something to help. But what could a stay-at-home mom possibly do to help? I thought of my grandmother who came over on a ship from Italy in the early 1900s, and I wondered if people did not welcome her when she came. Eventually, I was asked to lead a group to help immigrants, to connect them to resources. Our group is called the Annapolis Immigration Justice Network. I was so scared to lead a group, and I definitely made mistakes along the way. We began to realize the impact this was having on families. Parents were afraid to leave their homes, afraid to take their kids to school. We even met children who had developed a real fear of seeing a policeman in public. In April, I met this woman whose husband was a U.S. military veteran. She was so terrified that she would be deported at her check-in with ICE, and when she entered the building in Baltimore, we didn't know if she would ever come out. An hour later, she did come out. My group was so happy for her, but we saw the incredible stress that a family has to go through leading up to something like this. I remember another woman who was so terrified to go before an immigration judge that she couldn't eat or sleep for an entire week. She actually drew up guardianship papers because she thought she would be separated from her baby. As time went on, we met many more families. And you know what? Some of us in my group have no clue how to speak Spanish. The Google Translate app on my phone is my best friend when I don't have an interpreter with me. Then we learned of this man, a grandfather with no criminal record, who was incarcerated in conditions that were so hot that he would soak his clothes in water at night and sleep on the cement floor of his cell to try and sleep. I first met him at the detention center. He was sitting in a prison jumpsuit, and we were separated by a wall with a window. All I could say to him was, "I'm so sorry." He put his head down and became emotional, and both of us cried that day. Eventually, he was deported back to El Salvador. It was dangerous. A deported man is an easy target. He immediately went into hiding, and making the journey back up to the U.S. was his only option. As he made the journey up, there were times when he was scared. Sometimes we wouldn't hear from him, and we worried that he had been kidnapped by the drug cartels. This is a picture with his lawyer, who's on the right, just minutes after he presented himself to a U.S. Border Patrol agent on the Texas border. We were so relieved he was safe. He spent 8 weeks in jail until ICE agreed to release him on bond. This is me anxiously waiting to hear from him that night. ICE dropped him off at a bus station and left him. He had no phone, and he only had $1 in his pocket. Thank God for Uber. Finally, after 9 months, he was reunited with his family at BWI Airport in the early morning hours of December 23rd. You could feel the love and the joy as we all hugged him. I've never seen a happier man in my entire life. Now he is spending time with his family and awaiting to go before an immigration judge to present his case for asylum. We have been transformed forever by those we have met. They have taught us about hope, about the will to survive, and about what it is like for someone who is fleeing for their life. I don't know where exactly my journey goes from here, but I hope this has inspired you to reach out to someone who doesn't have a voice. The human connection crosses walls, crosses borders, and it even crosses languages. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you to our first 8 presenters. And thank you again for joining us this evening at Ignite Annapolis. Not only are we hoping to kindle some kind of spark in you this evening, there is another altruistic component to Ignite that deserves recognition as well. Ignite Annapolis has partnered this year with the Friends Foundation, an organization that was founded by, I know you're thinking Quakers, right? Yeah. No, it's just a group of friends. A group of friends from the Annapolis area who were looking for a way that they could come together and raise money for those in need. And net proceeds from the event this evening will go to the and they are. We'll see you back here in 30 minutes.
birthday comes.
you know that I would be alive if I was to say to you, girl, we couldn't get much higher. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the night on fire. No time to hesitate is through. No time to wallow in the mire. Shine on, get holy blue, and our love become a funeral pyre. Come on, baby, light my fire. Come on, baby, light my fire. Try to set the light on fire.
You know, I have another t-shirt I was gonna wear. It said, "I love umlauts." Seemed a little obtuse. Anyway, thank you, and welcome back to Ignite Annapolis, a program of urban renewal. I'm Rob Tim from 103.1 WRNR, and if you think about it, the existence of this event is a little bit audacious. For some people to say, hey, let's rent Maryland Hall, and we'll have some people like tell some stories and show some slides. I mean, how much money could we really lose? So as you can imagine, this evening truly would not be possible without our sponsors. Please join me in thanking Mackenzie Commercial Real Estate, South Moon Under, and Scarborough Capital Management, along with Skyline Technologies, Data Canopy, and Thibodeau Media Group. Our media partners this evening include Petruzzo Photography, documenting the evening, and Suited For, streaming all of our speakers this evening on Facebook and YouTube. All of this will be available for your future sharing and guaranteeing that you can keep your phones in your pockets. Also, WRNR, who give me a platform each morning to let people know about events such as this and to generally complain. That's why the show's 3 hours long. Also, special thanks this evening to Chris Schock, Christian Malone. This fine facility, Maryland Hall for the Creative Arts, and the staff and volunteers and crew here. The crew are really world class, and we can't thank them enough. Also, thanks to Launch Annapolis, What's Up Annapolis Magazine, The Capitol, and Eye on Annapolis. We are additionally indebted to our loyal volunteers, Lisa Ray, Janie Evans, Jesse Ray, Adam Thomas, and Chelsea Hachey. Now, without further delay, the second part of Ignite Annapolis, the part I like to call Part 2. Or Act 2, if you will. Thank you again.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Cruz.
And my name is Jennifer Godinez, and we're from North County High School STEM program. Buenas tardes. Hoy es un día que vamos a informarles sobre lo que es STEM. STEM es aplicando ciencia, tecnología, ingeniería y matemáticas en todas aplicaciones de toda la vida, como en trabajos de ingeniería o en una aplicación profesional.
I have a question. Was anyone able to fully understand what Jennifer just told you? Okay, very low number of hands.
Well, the reason we actually wanted you to feel this experience is so you can feel how non-native English speakers feel when they go to these events that involve their child's future.
What Jennifer just said is that STEM revolves around science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. In AACPS, STEM is defined as putting your resources, knowledge, and skills into solving a problem that can lead to opportunities in the world. What we wanted to talk about is how diversity makes a difference, obviously because we are two Hispanics talking to you on the stage. Diversity refers to talent from underrepresented groups and represented groups coming together to create a solution into real-life problems.
So why does STEM matter? I mean, for me it's easy because I'm a STEMie. And also for the country, it's important because it is estimated that in 5 years, the demand of STEM-related jobs will double, which is really important. And also 80% of those jobs in the next decade will require technical skills, which is really important for our country. And this way we can actually apply to our students and implement them to actually study these jobs and study these courses that will help them.
As STEM juniors at North County High School, we were able to realize that we want to bring diversity in this program. It is necessary. Every different idea and background brings new solutions into this problem, and this is something that must be done. We created a STEM day between our ESOL students at North County High School. These students were able to participate in 5 activities that related to our pathways offered at North County High School. They were all hands-on activities where they were able to learn from real-life scenarios that they participated in.
And the first pathway we actually talked about is Earth and Space Systems, which is just connecting terrestrial phenomena and celestial phenomena to the Earth and talking about specific spatial advancements going around us. And what we did was we allowed the students to do a little straw rocket, and we just gave them a rocket body, and they were just proposing the rocket with just their breath, which is really interesting because it's just really basic and it gives you a lot of understanding of how a rocket works.
Green technology is based on the environment and how we humans interact with it. It is used to produce advanced technology that will create our environment more environmental friendly without damaging it, such as global warming. That's such a big deal, isn't it? Our activity our students participated was testing the Chesapeake Bay water. They were allowed to find out how different type of bacteria impacts the sea organism, such as animals, plants, and most importantly, us humans who interact with this bay.
The next pathway I'll be talking about is engineering. Engineering is just applying your creativity and development into real-life situations, like the infrastructure you guys are currently sitting on. And the way we actually make the children involved into STEM was by giving them a paper plate, a strip of paper, and a marble so they can navigate through a maze which they're going to build. They were allowed to be as creative as they desire and do whatever they want as obstacles.
The computer pathway is quite simple, honestly. It's based on computers, honestly. Like, how do they work? Well, that's the complex situation. Computers are more than just programming, networking, apps, internet, databases, and coding. Our students were able to participate in a minor fragment of these situations. They participated in an hour of code, which allows them to move an animated object to one side of the screen to another by doing flips, cartwheels, or whatever it's necessary. They were able to do this by learning their ups, downs, left, and right that are provided in the keyboard for them.
And the final pathway being taught was nanotechnology, which is just the study of microscopic matter and its interaction with the same microscopic matter. And what we allowed the students to do was Oblek, which is almost like slime, but it's more like based on different like components, like how it can become a solid and a liquid at the same time. And the children were allowed to interact with how the compounds bond and how they create this weird phenomenon.
Lastly, for our students, we handed them out 3 different types of materials. These included magnet bags, STEM pens, and keychains. These was supported from AACPS. They provided us with these materials, and this was an easy way to start a conversation between the children and their parents where they can be more informed of the circumstances that their students should be taken.
And finally, the reason we're doing this is not just because we want more non-native English speakers to be in STEM. We want more women, more of different races, more of different religions to actually be part of STEM, because we need more innovative minds and different minds that actually come together and make a great bonding with each other.
Good evening, Annapolis. My name is Levante Santos, and tonight I want to talk to you about one of the most formidable beasts to ever walk our planet. In fact, it's been here since the time of the dinosaurs, the mighty ostrich. It's 6'8", 350 pounds, and can run from lions at an impressive 30 miles per hour. And if the lion catches it, the ostrich can throw a powerful kick that can kill it. This bird has been underestimated for years, but tonight I think it's making a comeback. The myth is that an ostrich hides its head in the sand when it's in danger. But that's just an alternative fact. The truth is that an ostrich is ignoring distractions and focusing on what's important. Its head isn't hiding in the sand. It's submerged to take care of its eggs, its legacy. The ostrich flees, fights, and builds for a better future. In the Chinese Year of the Dog, I challenge everyone to think about how you can be more like an ostrich in the year 2008 and beyond. Here's how. Live for a legacy that you are proud to leave behind. We are in the most technologically advanced time in human history, and we are saturated with social media notifications, changing technology, and evolving politics. Like ostriches, we must acknowledge and treat threats to our way of life seriously. We are being led to believe that we are better than each other based on race, economic standing, religion, gender, sexual orientation, education, zip code, and more. The truth is we're in this fight together. We are better when we talk about the issues with each other and not at each other, discussing our fears and our dreams. Because when we do that, we realize that we are not so different after all. In World War I, there was a short truce where troops stopped fighting each other and even ate together. Let's stop hurling political bullets and piercing each other with untrue notions about each other so that we can truly begin healing. In that spirit, I propose a civil truce in the United States before we destroy our legacy and our opportunity to be greater. The behavior of the ostrich can help us accomplish that goal. Just as the ostrich flees from the lion, we need to run from the urge to be intellectually lazy. It's comfortable but dangerous. We should relentlessly discover our similarities instead of unproductively identifying our arbitrary differences. Every single time that hate enters your heart, you must run from that lion, because if it catches you, then it will devour you. Do not pretend that a lion is actually a kitten. This is real life, and we all have a breaking point, and one day that lion's going to corner you, and you're going to have to fight. Maybe the lion's faster or stronger or better funded. Whatever the case, we need to face that lion relentlessly and fight it. For some of us, that lion is depression caused by social media. Our lives don't seem great in comparison to the lives that other people are pretending to have. For some, it's crippling debt, or generously unkind people in our lives or on TV. Face that lion head on and know that you can beat it. Understand that every single person in this room, in Annapolis, and around the country has similar challenges, fears, hopes, and dreams for themselves and their families. Some might be saying, you know what, this lion's never bothered me, I don't even care. But I would offer to you, just because you don't take an interest in the lion doesn't mean that one day the lion won't take an interest in you. Be vigilant, take an interest, and choose to care. Ultimately, all we want to do is secure our legacies and take care of our families. One of the greatest callings we have on the planet is legacy building, and we need to make it count every single day. As the ostrich focuses on their nest, I offer that we take breaks from technology and social media, understanding they were never supposed to replace our lives, but be tools in them to make them better. Now, I'm a millennial, but I don't think you need to be a social media expert to say this. If you need a notification to tell you that you're on fire, my friend, you are too connected. Log off. See, ostriches use their God-given talents and instincts very well. They flee, they fight, and they build legacies. Sometimes it's actually good to keep your head in the sand, to build yourself up and to build up your family. I offer that as a community, Annapolis. We flee the urge to hate, fight threats to human decency, and focus on legacy building. Like ostriches, we are unbeatable when we band together, in turn strengthen ourselves, our families, and our communities. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Spalita, and I'm happy to share my thoughts with you tonight. Little things have been causing big problems forever. Germs, ticks, and mosquitoes are all tiny things that can cause great harm. Tonight, I'm going to talk about a little thing that you may never have thought of as a problem. Plastic straws. They are everywhere. Chances are you used one or more today. But those little things add up. In fact, they add up to 500 million in the US per day. That's right. It's estimated that the US alone uses 500 million plastic straws every day. That's enough to wrap around the earth 2.5 times. So what's the big deal? The big deal is they last forever. Straws are too small to recycle, so they become trash. We like to think that trash has a nice trip to the landfill where it will be for the next 1,000 years. But too often, the small pieces, like straws, end up in the waterways, the bay, our bay, or the ocean. Once in the water, plastic is believed to last for centuries. Think of it this way: a moment on the lips, a lifetime in our ocean. Straws and stirs are consistently among the top 5 items collected in beach cleanups worldwide, and even stream cleanups right around here. Also, the impact on wildlife can be devastating. Sea turtles, birds, and fish can mistake plastic for food or get entangled in small pieces, get straws lodged in them, like these poor sea turtles here. But the bigger issue is how plastics break down. Essentially, every piece of plastic ever made is still in our environment. It doesn't biodegrade. It just keeps breaking down into smaller and smaller pieces, eventually getting so small that we call them microplastics. Microplastics are a human health concern because they are full of contaminants. A tiny piece of ocean plastic can be 1,000,000 times more toxic than the water around it. Fish and other sea life, much of which we like to think of as seafood, ingest these toxic bits of plastic, and it moves up the food chain to us. Scientists predict that if we don't start changing our habits and getting over our plastic addiction, there will be more plastic than fish in the oceans by 2050. I also want to acknowledge that it's not just straws that are causing this problem. It's primarily all single-use plastics, like plastic drink bottles and the ubiquitous plastic bag, to name 2 top offenders. But really, any plastic that isn't disposed of properly can end up in the sea, and some are just taken there by the wind. So what can you do? For starters, you can stop sucking. You can start saving the planet from plastic pollution one straw at a time. Next time you're out in a bar or restaurant, just tell your server, "No straw, please." And if you're at a casual place where you fill your own cup, you can skip the straw and the lid. Bonus. Or you could take it a step further and ask your favorite restaurant to switch to a straws upon request policy. They save money, reduce pollution, and if someone has a disability that they need a straw, they could still get one. Ocean trash and plastic pollution seem like unsurmountable problems, but if each one of us takes one small action every day, things can start to improve. It's time to reduce our plastic use and not think of the recycle bin as a free pass to mindlessly consume. JFK said, "One person can make a difference, and everyone should try." Every one of you can try to say no to single-use plastics. And building on that, Barbara Mikulski added, "Together, we make change." The combined efforts of all of us here can start to change the tide of plastic overuse and pollution. So I hope you will join me and stop sucking.
Hi, everybody. My name is Matt Puglisi. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder and CEO of Facebook, a platform with almost 2 billion users, predicts that artificial intelligence, or AI, will deliver so many improvements in the quality of our lives. Elon Musk, the founder and CEO of Tesla Motors and SpaceX, and one of the driving forces behind the rise of PayPal, predicts that AI will emerge as a fundamental risk to the existence of human civilization. Now, these guys know a lot about AI. After all, they're billionaires in part because their companies have expertly leveraged AI. So who's right? And are they even asking the right questions? Now, on the left is a computer. For thousands of years until just recently, computers were people who performed calculations or computations, and they used tools like an adding machine, an abacus, or a slide rule. Now, Homo sapiens, or modern humans, have existed for hundreds of thousands of years, and we have always used tools. In fact, fire, stone tools, and spears predate our emergence on the earth. And modern electronic computers are tools that run programs written by humans to perform computations. As they've become smaller and faster, their fundamental operation, computation, has not changed. AI is a program that enables computers to learn and perform human-like tasks. We feed AI vast amounts of data to learn patterns so that AI can win chess games or drive cars. A powerful AI technology is deep learning, which is designed to process data like the human brain. It excels at image recognition, which is why Facebook and Tesla use it to label images of faces and traffic signs. So feed it thousands or millions of images of a stop sign, and it computes the location of every pixel in every image, and it eventually, almost always, correctly labels new images as stop signs. However, it will not correctly label a slightly modified image as a stop sign. But wait, doesn't it understand, like any 5-year-old, what a stop sign is? No. Computers do not understand anything. Understanding flows from consciousness, and consciousness emerges somehow from the 100 billion neurons that have formed around 100 trillion connections in our brains. Okay, so what if we built a computer network on the same vast scale of a human brain and run deep learning? Would consciousness emerge? After all, deep learning enables computers to mimic the human brain. If they gain consciousness, what would happen? Well, to answer that question, let's assess what consciousness has enabled us to do. On a global scale, since the agricultural revolution, most living things that are not humans are in cages, scratching out an existence in the wild or extinct. So warnings about machines with superhuman powers are pretty compelling. If baseline humans tend to brutalize those that they perceive to be lesser beings, what would upgraded models do to us? Alas, poor humans, I remember them. But for machines to destroy us, they must one day become conscious, band together, and decide to wipe us out. Can that happen? Probably not. Computers are unlikely to develop consciousness. AI enables computers to mimic the human brain, but computers are not human brains. We tend to see human traits in our pets when we perceive them to smile, in robots when they make gestures, and in God when we imagine what he looks like. But consciousness, that ultimate human trait, is unlikely to emerge in computers. Computers will do what humans program them to do, just as a rocket can carry aloft fireworks, a space capsule, or a nuclear weapon. Will AI enable consciousness to emerge from computers, putting human civilization at risk? Maybe. I just don't think it's likely. Right now, though, we have a real problem. We're the problem. Humans are driving climate change and extinction thanks to our real intelligence and consciousness. And the truth is that our unassisted brains solve these complex existential problems. We have an emerging tool, though, that in concert with our brains could help us solve these problems. Will AI make our lives better, or will it destroy us? AI might have been invented just in time. Thank you.
Hello. There's a lot in common between motorcycling and entrepreneurship. This is my bike, and I'm a business owner. And one of my rides, I realized 3 key elements of success that link entrepreneurship and motorcycling. One of my favorite TV shows is Mark Lemanis's The Profit. And in it, he invests in companies and he gives business advice on his show. And Mark identifies 3 keys to business success: people, processes, and products. And linking these 3 elements between motorcycling and entrepreneurship, I thought was a fun way to have you understand that for people, you are leaders of yourself and others, to be accountable to and responsible for your outcomes. For processes, stuff happens, and it's okay if you're prepared. And for products, when you manage resources wisely, you create success in your business and in life. So first, touch on the people success element. On a group ride, a ride leader is responsible ultimately for the success of the ride. She learns where resources are, like gas and food, and she creates contingency plans for things like weather and traffic conditions. She has to know the bike and the riding capabilities in her group in order to plan for challenges, and she might intersperse experienced riders with the newbies to coach when necessary. And if you're entrepreneurial, you see yourself as the leader ultimately responsible for the success of your business. You find the resources to run, and you hire and train the people that you need to make your business a success. You learn your business cycles, and you make contingency plans for changes in market conditions and operational breakdowns and shifts in customer behavior to make your business profitable. Sometimes I ride with a group for the company of other riders, and we depend on and we're accountable to each other for safety and for security, even if we've just met that day. And everybody has a role in the staggered formation of the ride. We communicate with each other using the same language for hand signals and for directions and warnings, and we agree on ride norms for speed and general behavior. Entrepreneurs often work alone, and we need to get out of our own heads sometimes and engage with other experienced business owners. My company creates something called Idea Mind teams based on Napoleon Hill's mastermind principle for just this purpose. And mind teams work because members depend on and are accountable to each other. A facilitator leads the group, and we share new ideas and solutions and accountability. So that's the people success link. Now the processes. In the motorcycle basic rider class, we learn systems and processes that create a safe riding experience. And we practice and we internalize those procedures so that we can focus on the ride. And when processes become habits, we manage our bike controls and we're able to handle distractions and dangers because they're automatic, just like first responders do. Well, entrepreneurs get distracted by bright, shiny objects called innovation and disruption and opportunity. And when we create our own business processes, we better respond to the inevitability of market and industry changes. Now, a motorcycle has 2 products to worry about: her body and the bike. And keeping both well-maintained and knowing our limits leads to positive long-term performance and fewer breakdowns. And motorcyclists like to check out the competition. There's always something newer and bigger and faster on the market, and we have to lust after and plan for upgrades to. And entrepreneurs protect businesses through insurance, security measures. We learn our limits and we create channels for growth with suppliers and with our infrastructure. And we identify competition through analytics and buyer feedback to stay relevant and profitable. Whew, this was fast. I hope linking motorcycling and entrepreneurship was a fun way for you to realize the 3 elements of business success: people, processes, and product. Remember that you are leaders and accountable for your outcomes, that stuff happens, and it's okay when you're prepared, and when you manage resources wisely and call a motorcycle riding business coach to help, you create success for your business, your profession, and your life. Vroom, vroom.
Hi, my name is Vicki Bruce. I'm going to tell you how a little-known revolutionary named William Goddard inspired me to follow in his footsteps and create a patriotic media group for our own political revolution right here in Anne Arundel County. Here's the bad guy in our historical story. His name is King George, and he's totally greedy, and he wants money from the colonies. He's taxing paper, he's taxing tea, you name it. And the colonies are getting zilch back. All the while, he's really upset that the colonists don't like him and don't appreciate him. There were a lot of colonists who were not happy about the British either, so they formed the Sons of Liberty, a clandestine organization that was trying to figure out how to rise up against the British. They wrote long letters and sent them secretly because they were committing treason. Here's the hero of the story. It's 1774, and William Goddard is up in arms. He's a printer and a newspaper man who's loudly proclaiming that the British are greedy scumbags in the columns of his newspaper. In return, the British post office charges him triple and then dumps his papers in the trash. So Goddard gets a brilliant idea. If the British won't deliver his papers or make it affordable to do so, he'll design his own postal system across the colonies. His fellow revolutionaries love the idea. Here's Paul Revere saying how awesome it is. And it worked. All around the colonies, printers and newspapermen wrote anti-British columns in the paper, riling up the citizens and infuriating the ruling British. By the time King George and his men got wind, it was too late. When George Washington led the Continental Army to fight the British, the newspapermen had printed enough stories of British tyranny that the majority of the colonists were totally on board. The free press helped Americans win the Revolution. Fast forward 200 years. American newspapers continued to keep our government in check. The Fourth Estate, it was called. A turning point came in 1996 when the Clinton administration deregulated the telecom industry. Small papers folded or got gobbled up by corporate giants. Enter the next bad guy in our story. Regardless of your politics, Donald Trump has been the worst thing to happen to journalism since King George tried to stop the firebrand printers in the colonies. Trump has done everything he can to undermine the media. This is one of the least egregious attacks. With all of the fake news coming out of NBC and the networks, at what point is it appropriate to challenge their license? Bad for country. I personally know journalists who had to cover his rallies and were terrified. Having Trump attack the very values that many Americans hold dear, like personal freedom, civility, and a variety of other issues, people were shocked, and like revolutionaries against the British, they began to protest in the streets. But aside from protesting, most people had no idea what to do. Some came back and huddled. I was clueless. I was working on my book and wallowing in self-pity in the end of America as I'd known it. Then it occurred to me. William Goddard, my hero in my book, the man who single-handedly created a secure way to communicate his anti-British and pro-revolutionary propaganda, was doing just what I needed to do. I'll copy him. I will go and find my own Sons of Liberty and daughters. First, I hit up an old friend, Peter, who happened to be a co-founder of the Arundel Patriot. Fortunately, he has an amazing wife who was also on board. Jeff Snowman was next. He gave us his tech know-how, and then came Rob Cates, a video guru. Then I went looking for patriots, and I found lots of them right here. Some of them are in this audience tonight. There's Janice, and I see Suzanne, I see Yasmin. Who else is here? Oh, and then I found editors because I had so much content coming and we were so successful. So Kelly Price is here. That's Anne, that's Ruth, that's Vika, that's Ruth, and Dawn, who's also here. Then people started to rally around us and said, you need to get even bigger. So citizen publishers came out and they started to help fund the Arundel Patriot. So after August, from April to now, which is less than a year, we've had 100,000 individual hits to our website. We've written about politics, we've written about the environment, we've written about, we have a Young Patriot section, we have opinion section, and we've done a whole lot in a little short time. Our live stream has been seen probably 50,000 times, thanks to Rob Cates, who got us all started, got us little tripods, and we all go around and we amplify messages of good stories and good things that are happening in our county, and good candidates. Whoever would overthrow the liberty of a nation must begin by subduing the freeness of speech. That's Benjamin Franklin. He was a frenemy of William Goddard, but I still love him. And because of that, we all need your help to keep the press free and keep supporting independent media. So thank you.
Good evening, I'm Wes Huey. What you've learned about leadership is probably fine. It probably earned you a bonus or a promotion, but it didn't probably tap into the transformational power of leadership, because I think to do that, we have to ask a particular question. Let's ask, where is leadership? Through our history, we thought of leadership as located in great men. We've thought of it as located in a position or a title. And recently, we've thought of it as located in the relationship between leader and follower. I think it's somewhere else. Let me explain. Humans that look like us have been on the earth for about 200,000 years. We've been talking to each other for 60,000 of those years. That little sliver on the right, that's what we know as AD, the Common Era. In other words, we've only been living in a society like we know today for about 3% of our existence. So what does that say about our habits, about how we think and how we get along with each other? Might we have some bad habits? Let me see if I can point one out. If I gave you these 3 numbers and then I told you to give me 3 more numbers that match the rule, you might say 8, 10, and 12. And then if I said, yes, those numbers match the rule, you'd say, well, the rule is counting up by 2. And I'd say, that's not my rule. And you'd get confused and you'd say, well, how about 14, 16, and 18? And I'd say, those numbers match my rule. And so now you're getting frustrated and angry. And you say, well, what about 1, 3, and 5? And I say, those numbers match my rule. But until you give me a set of numbers like 6, 4, and 2, you're no closer to the answer. And so then you'd say, oh, now I get it. It's ascending numbers in ascending order. And I'd say, yes. And then we'd high-five each other because the light bulb came on. And that was really hard. So what's going on here? Well, it's called confirmation bias. You see, we as humans actively set out to prove what we already know, rather than try to figure out why we might be wrong. And that has significant implications for learning. Here's another example of confirmation bias. Who in this room sees a young woman in this picture? Who sees an old woman? Which of you see both? So let me ask you this question. If you didn't know that both images were present, how likely would you be to look for that second image? Again, another example of confirmation bias. Here's the inconvenient truth about our minds. Our minds evolved in a world in which information was very scarce, and even when we organized that information into knowledge, very few of us thought about it. So this has tremendous implications for our ability to learn and our habits surrounding learning. So remember that red sliver I showed you a second ago? That's the x-axis on this graph. It took us 1,500 years to double our knowledge. Today it takes us less than 12 months to double our knowledge. Soon it'll be less than 12 hours. So we better be ready to learn. Here's the good news. Some of us humans have seen this coming and have given us clues about how to prepare ourselves. In other words, how to lead. One of those humans was Rudyard Kipling, who wrote the poem If in 1895. It tells us as leadership resides. He says, if you can keep your head when all about are losing theirs and blaming it on. If you trust yourself when all men doubt you and you leave allowance for their doubting too. If you wait and not be tired by hating and being lied about, not deal in lies, and being hated, not give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. I think Rudyard Kipling was telling us that leadership is about a mastery of self, about mastering your mind, your passions, and your spirit. Leadership, ladies and gentlemen, resides in you, all of you, and me. The task of leaders is to try to do our best as a collective society to master ourselves. Where I work as the Chief People Officer at Skyline Technology Solutions, we believe passionately that every one of us is a leader, from the founder of the company down to our newest new hire. And we believe it's all of our responsibilities to develop ourselves as best we can, develop ourselves in terms of our learning, in terms of our growth, in terms of our technical capabilities. And we do that in the context of a safe environment in which we're all allowed to fail, because after all, we are frail and we are flawed as human beings. If we do that in an environment that's safe, then it's a much better place to be. So if you believe, as we do, that leadership is a matter of self-management, and you believe that our world needs us all to lead, to learn, and indeed to love, then please, let's start a conversation. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mary Grace Falwell.
About 5 years ago, I was sitting at my desk and I received a text from Google telling me it was time to leave for my dinner date. I had not asked for this text, but Google had figured it out from my calendar invitation, from my location, and from the current traffic conditions. My first reaction was, my, that's useful. And my second, about 10 seconds later, was, that is really creepy. This is the world we live in. We have tremendous services available to us, but the price is often giving up control of our personal data. This map shows every place that I've used Google Maps since 2009, and the inset shows that Google reads my mail in order to suggest responses. I didn't ask for either of these services, it just started happening.
Your face can be recorded, analyzed, and stored without your consent. These databases can be searched by law enforcement without a warrant, but facial recognition is not 100% accurate, and it does better on white males than other groups. Smart speakers are becoming widespread. They have to listen to everything you say in order to hear the wake-up word. Even though they don't currently record everything, the companies could change the privacy policy. And would you read it if they did?
Sometimes our data is collected by virtue of somebody else's decision. For example, if somebody decides to have their DNA tested, then part of your DNA could be out there as well. And we all know how easy it is to be snapped and tagged in somebody else's social media photograph. It's tempting to think, well, I have nothing to hide, but my question is, why does a United actually need access to my camera? 7 out of 10 apps share information with other apps for commercial purposes.
There's a wide range of data that's readily available for purchase, and all you need is a name, email, and address. And most of these attributes are considered likelihood models based on all kinds of data shared from different purposes. The fact is, data can be combined in ways you've never imagined in order to decide whether a company wants you as a customer, and it may not be in your interest. For the most part, there are no protection against unfair or inaccurate profiling for commercial purposes.
In America, the onus is on the consumer to research and keep up with the current privacy policies of where their data resides. Often just using the service implies consent to the current terms and conditions, whether or not you know what they are. This is one really scary example. It's Airbnb. This company collects a copy of your government-issued ID, and you have to agree that they cannot guarantee that that will be protected.
In Europe, there's a fundamentally different approach. From the 1980s, there have been laws requiring corporations to disclose all data held and to correct and delete data upon request by individuals. There's actually a right to be forgotten in the EU. And a major update called GDPR comes into effect in May and strengthens this right to be forgotten and the requirement to disclose data breaches. Failure to comply exposes corporations to a penalty of 2% of their total gross global revenue.
The Chinese government is taking steps to profile its entire population. They're setting up a social credit score system where financial, behavioral, and relationship data is captured and may affect your access to travel visas and credit.
In 1787 in the US, the concept of privacy related mostly to this idea of physical spaces and protecting our homes. In the US, today, there is no universal legal protection of personal data. When the OECD was drafting the privacy standards that became the law in the EU, the US said, no thank you. Laws do exist in the US governing specific data, for example, personal health data, and uses of that data, but legal protections in the US are fragmented.
The use of collected information is being tested in this key case where a man was convicted of a string of thefts based on location data from his phone that was obtained without a warrant. We should know the result this year.
So these companies collectively spent almost $50 million in lobbying in 2017. Their data is their raw material, and our attention is their product.
Personal data is hugely profitable, and in the US, it's mostly controlled by corporations. Our government and our culture accepts the collection and use of personal data for profit, and our laws reflect this. So what does it all mean? Well, we don't know, but we think that people should think about this and understand the profit motive that's behind a lot of this, and maybe once in a while, read the privacy policy.
Thank you again for joining us this evening for Ignite Annapolis. It is my pleasure to introduce to you this evening's organizers, Jen Herson, Kathleen Booth, Trish Farrell, and Liz Thibodeau.
Thank you so much for coming out tonight, and we just want to make you think about what you might want to talk about next time. We had 16 really great topics, and 16 people tonight did that thing on the side of the Lululemon bags. One thing that scares you today. I know I was scared. I don't know about you guys, but what about you? What do you want to talk about?
And this is all about you guys, and so what we'd like to do is cap the night off by taking a selfie with every one of you, and thank you so much for coming and being a part of this experience.
All right.
Spirit of Maryland calling me, audibly, bawling. She said that she would never leave, continue to torture me, telling me to come with her, underneath my comforter. And she brought a gun with her, pills and some rum with her. Took me on the balcony, telling me to jump with her. Yeah, I'm in the ghost, but I ain't doing stunts with her. I ain't trying to be that, haters wanna see that. But I got him aggy, cause I win the gold like Gabby.
She's just a girl and she's on fire. Hotter than a fantasy, only like a highway. She's living in a world and it's on fire. Filled with catastrophe, but she knows she can fly away. Oh, she got 4 feet on the ground and she's burning it down. She got her head in the clouds and she's not backing down. This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire. She's walking on fire. This girl is on fire. Looks like a girl, but she's a flame. So bright she can burn your eyes. Better look the other way. You can try, but you'll never forget her name. She's on top of the world, hottest of the hottest girls. Say, oh, we got our feet on the ground and we're burning it down. Oh, got our head in the clouds and we're not coming down. This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire. She's walking on fire. This girl is on fire. Everybody stares as she goes by, 'cause they can see the flame that's in her eyes. Watch her as she's lighting up the night. Nobody knows that she's a lonely girl, and it's a lonely world. But she gon' let it burn, baby, burn, baby.
Dear God, if you hear God, make the fire disappear when they stare, God. Take away my fear when they interfere, God. Do you fear God? Cause I fear God. And in my backyard, that's a dear God. And that's a horse ranch. And to my core fans, keep repping me. Do it to the death of me. X in the box, cause ain't nobody checking me.